Hash and circle up.
Welcome to On, the Hash House Harrier podcast for interviews, history, and stories. I'm your host, Ra.
Today on the podcast, we've caught up with somebody who travels a lot, who's back in his adopted home in Texas, longtime hasher. Welcome today, Pipes. How are you?
Good, thanks, Ra. Good.
Let's tell people hashing origin story. Where, when, and how did you get to your first hash?
All right. It goes long back. Years ago, my father was starting hashing. He started hashing in Peloton Hash, which I believe is having their 50th anniversary this year. At that time, I was a serious runner, and I was like, what the hell is this stupid shit? And I always gave him crap about it. It's like, I'm not doing this thing. Then a couple of years later, myself and my wife at the time, we moved to Perth, Australia. And I thought, well, I need to start to find some people around here. So I started looking, and I looked at the hash clubs. I sort of try it out. Lo and behold, the hash club I started with was the notorious Hammersley Hash House Harriers. So I was indoctrinated very quickly with some notorious people. It was fun. So I really started enjoying that. I think it was only a few years, a couple of runs, and they finally gave me my hash name.
What year was that you moved?
85. This year will be my 40th year of hashing since I started.
Now, your wife at the time couldn't hash with Perth. Was she a hasher?
No, she was not. At the time, I used hashing as an outlet because I was an ICU nurse, and hashing was such a great outlet for me because I had been dealing with all this serious shit through the week, and all of a sudden I can go out and just let loose. And that was Friday, and it was my only one day of the week that I had an outlet. Yeah. She never had a problem with it. She thought it was fine. She never had issues at all with that at all.
What was the makeup of Hammersley in 1985? Who was there? What was it like?
People that you would still see today, and XYZ was there. Coops, who was a very good friend of mine and still is today. Popeye. Then there was a few other people that have traveled around and done into hashes. Mac the Mouth. These are people that are now over 1,000 plus runs with the Hammersley hash. They have been down there for a while, and really nice guys. And Hammersley's a mainline only. It's basically sort of orientated itself to be similar to the Mother Hash because we were on the same time zone as Mother Hash. So we ran on Mondays at 6 o'clock. So it was all the same. And Hammersley's also was a break off of the Perth Hash. Perth Hash started first, and Hammersley started because it was more on the northern suburbs of Perth. This Perth Hash, men's hash, is probably the oldest one. I think it's probably the second or third oldest hash in Australia. And then Hammersley started a few years after that, just for people on the north side. And yeah.
But their traditions were a little bit more hash-like for a lot of people than Mother Hash.
Correct. They had very strange rules. Not rules, I said they're very. It's a men's only hash. It was 8A runs all the time. We had our own trailer, very well organized. I think mostly that was well organized because most of these guys were business guys who ran businesses. So they ran Hammersley Hash like a business indirectly, and it was always totally functional. And so that's how they became very organized. I like them because they did also something that's weird, which probably Americans might find weird. They don't drink beer straight away when they first come back. They have what they call a splash, which was a mixture of ginger beer and beer because of drink driving laws in Australia. So it was easier to quench your thirst and drink a beer and down with a diluted beer with things. People still could get their own full beers if they wanted to, but that's how it started. And
I want to talk about your hash name story, but first, how long were you there, and what other hashes started around Perth Hammersley before you left?
There's been a lot have started. So there was the Bustleton, that then was Fremantle Hash, south of Perth Hash. Now they have ones like over 100 kilo hash. There's 100 kg hash. They have a sat hash. Of course, they have the women's hash, which is the Perth Harriettes, which is also one of the larger ones. And there's a few more there southwide, but those that had started when I left.
And what was their naming story?
So it's really stupid and silly, but it's nothing fancy. So people always think because I can be a bit loud, I think it's that, or I play bagpipes. It has nothing to do. As I like to say, that Hammersley hashers don't like to think too hard for working out a hash name, especially when you've had a few drinks. You know, having a name that's sounds like some weird name that's got 5 words in it. They don't like it. They like one word. So most of the hashers in Hammersley have very simple hash names. My real name is Dwayne. So it was Dwayne Pipes or Drain Pipes. And it's that stupid and that easy. Then I compare that to other people's hash names. And I said, mine was so boringly simple how I got it. So that's how it came across. And I took it because I could put it on letterheads, or I didn't have to worry about being non-suitable for work name. And I even got my own number plates with those on it. So
and cheap hash necklace too, 5 letters. Yeah,
that's it, 5 chips. So that's how it started. Hash names in Hammersley, Coops, Mac, the Mouth, Popeye, Mace, all derivative of most of your names. Rarely did they start coming off with something. When I came to America, I saw a totally different change how people got a hash name. So it was a different.
Yeah. How long were you in Western Australia?
I lived there in 85. Then in 91, I moved to Saudi Arabia to work. And I hashed with the Jeddha hash and then the Riyadh hash. I went to when I moved in Riyadh, which was a totally different style of hashing, which I was not just expecting to see, because they actually had a sign-in sheet for sign in when you left and sign in when you came in. Even though it's out in the middle of the deserts, people still got lost. So that was things. And they tended to also do the circle before the hash, which was something I'd never experienced before. So it was different. I always tell people all hashes are different. You don't complain about it. It's just the way it happens, and that's okay.
Let me ask you about the difference between the two cities in terms of lifestyle and hashing. Jeddha and Riyadh, one's an admin capital.
Right.
There's school people and engineers in both. Yeah.
So Riyadh was stricter as far as things could be, especially if, like me, I was a single male at that stage, so it's different. Whereas in Jeddha, you could get together with the mixed sexes, was a lot easier to do without being more watched, as I would say. Whereas Riyadh, and most of the hashes were way out of the town, were nowhere close to town. So when we were doing these things, there was nobody there to basically keep an eye or stir on us, because I went over there, I think just before the first Gulf War, when I started doing the Jeddha hash. And then I came back a couple of years later and I went to Riyadh and I started doing things. So they're mostly all very family orientated too. So they're very more focused on family. So you got a lot of kids, a lot of adults. It's basically more as an escape from the normal routine of Saudi Arabia. So the only other way for outlook for something, if you wanted drinking or socially like that, would be more with the rugby clubs that we had there. There were some rugby clubs that we had both in Jeddha and Riyadh. So those are the places where we would do more alcohol, if you had to drink alcohol or anything like that.
When did you start traveling to hashes outside of where you lived? And
the first one was 1988, Bali. Bali into hash was my first into hash. Went up there with my good friend Coops. We were up there, of course, at the Hammersley, because it was Bali. It was like the next door. So they went en masse. And that's also where I got to meet the Dirt Road as well. Pattya Dirt Road hash. I didn't hash with them at that point, but I got to meet a few people there from that hash that had traveled down. I started doing the World End hashes after that. The next one was
Manila,
the Philippines, and then I think it was
Phuket.
Yes, it was Phuket. And my
Yeah.
Phuket story is always the funniest one. I was working in Saudi Arabia and I just booked a flight, had no accommodation, no nothing. These are days before the internet and messaging people. It was all like this. So I rocked up to Phuket with no accommodation, and I was just going to try and find a hotel. And I pulled up to the expat, which was the base of the Interhash at that time. And I laughed at it because I said, by any chance, would you have a room? Thinking, I'm not going to get it. This is like 3 or 4 days before the Interhash, and I'm here. And they said, yes, we've got one room left. I said, and they said, it has no AC. I don't care. I'll take it. So I couldn't believe I got, and then that's where I also met a lot of the dirt road, because the Pattya Dirt Road was staying at that hotel as well. So most of those guys were staying there, and I got to meet some people from there. Then I did my first dirt road with those, that was their world dirt road that they did.
They call it the interdirt. Was that your first dirt was an interdirt?
Yes, my first dirt was the interdirt, which now you can't. That now does not allow to happen.
Yeah, that was a rule. What do you want to say about the dirt road hash for people don't know?
So the Pattya Dirt Road, to me, I really like them because they are really serious runs. They, besides all the rumors and whatever you hear, it's like the runs are always long. They are 2 to 3 hours plus. Sometimes you will meet up, it'll take you out to the middle of nowhere, or then you do your hash, and then you end up at a place where you'll end up having food, drinks, beers, and everybody who does not always complains about a circle that goes too long should never ever go to a dirt road run, because the circle will go on for a good long time, and they will make you sit on ice for a long period of time. But I loved it. My favorite story is Huda Bill. You've probably heard of Huda Bill here out of Houston. He actually went to a dirt road. He always complains about his dirt road because, and you got to realize Huda Bill likes to chat. He's always yapping and talking. Nothing bad, but just so chatting. He always says, they made me sit on ice because they wouldn't let me talk, he said. Because you're not allowed to talk in the circle of the dirt road, and he liked to talk. And so every time he opened his mouth, he's back on the ice. And he always tells me how he bitched and moaned about that whole thing, so he complained about it.
Yeah, how'd that work out for him? Yeah.
But no,
All right.
Yeah, the dirt roads, I have done multiple interdirts. I've also started doing their own Pattya Dirt Road runs when I'm going up there. Because when I was working in the Middle East, I would fly into Thailand, Bangkok, because I couldn't fly home straight to Australia. I would spend a week in it, and not Phuket at Pattaya, and then I would fly down home. And they'll normally try to tie it up with the dirt road in there. It's been a long time since I've been on one, so hopefully I can start going back, because it's now I'm back on the road and get fully recovery with the injuries I've had.
We'll get to that stuff, but let's just talk a little bit more about the dirt. It's a monthly run.
Yep.
And you talked about Hammersley having rules, but not rules. The dirt has some more rules. There's some people don't know what this is. T-shirt.
No.
What about
my favorite one is the T-shirt. Yes, the T-shirt was, and if you actually look in the lining of a T-shirt, of a dirt road shirt, it basically says this shirt has been earned, and basically says cannot be worn by the female of the species, and it has your name on it on that shirt. So this also led to a problem with mine one time. I had somebody staying at my place at the expat, and they decided to leave in the morning. They couldn't find their own shirt. And they immediately picked up one of my dirt shirts and were putting it on. And I almost screamed. It's like she was about to walk out the door. But as I said, I was in the expat with full of dirt road hashes. And if they'd seen that, I would have been very much crucified at the next dirt road.
The shirt would be no more.
It would be, they would take the shirt off and they would burn it, basically. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see. So there'll be some people hear that and say, what the hell is this guy talking about? All right. So who was there? Who were the key people organizing or showing up regularly at the dirts when you went?
who owns the bar? I forgot because everybody
Oh,
would Airhead.
Airhead.
They, because you've got to realize most of these Pattya hashes, both if you did the dirt road or even just a regular Pattya hash, that a lot of people end up in the Tahitian Queen, which was the base hotel bar for all the hashes. There's a few of those people there. Airhead was probably the most notorious one there. My favorite one, but they even had, I think it was the first ferret hash started in the Tahitian Queen. And if anybody who doesn't know what the ferret hash is, it's based by a couple of guys from England who decided to have the shortest hash run ever. So the first one was actually in the Pattya Tahitian Queen. It was a run around the girls dancing and a false trail into the bathroom, I think, and that was the actual trail. But they started having interferret hashes as well. So I think my favorite one of that one was when we were in a hash in Cyprus. Most of us were staying at the Sun and Surf Hotel right there opposite the beach. We started the run at the Sun and Surf. We crossed the street. It went about 100 yards to the right, which was a false trail, and then came back to the left. I think it was another 100 yards, and that was actually home. And then the circle for the on would splash. They decided to get every bit of clear alcohol, spirits, put it in a big barrel, then add all the juices that they found. So Downs weren't beer. It was this basically high octane alcoholic drink. The run lasted less than 5 minutes. The circle lasted 2.5 hours. So it was.
And you became a regular interhasher. What are some of the characteristics about those that made them more memorable or work better for you?
Bali was fun because that was my first, and there's a Nightjar was basically who was the lead person who ran that from Bali. It was such well run. It was well organized. It had good run sites. It was a beautiful place to have. And this is way before now how it's become even more commercialized. So that was always memorable because, you know, it was my first experience. Then Phuket was great because of the people. That's also where I got to meet the Phuket hash, and they made fun of me, and you know I got so shit-faced drunk at that one because I did the men's Phuket. Oh, is it the Vikings or something? So I forget what the hash is there, and they gave me this horn that I said I was not to lose. Well, of course, somebody swiped it while I wasn't looking. And so I had to do downs after in a circle. Where's the horn? So no horn, have a drink. Hey, Pipes, where's that horn? Shit, out there. It was like, meanwhile, somebody sitting up there with the horn in the back, in their side pocket, just getting me shit-faced drunk, you know. Yeah, that was good, the Phuket, you know. And then New Zealand was my next favorite, of course, Rotorua. And the fun part about that place was, I always remember the beer was in a truck.
Yeah.
Did you go to that, Ralph?
Yeah. I think there might have been two with the long hoses coming.
They
right
had
out
hoses
of the
basically powering up to, and I always remember because that's when I really sort of met some people from Perth, and I met people like She Muscle Bitch, which you've had on before. I met Slumbag, and then a couple other hashes from Houston. Comes Daly, she doesn't hash anymore. And my favorite part was the train coming from Auckland to Rotorua. Basically, the hash took over this train, and it was so much fun. We actually stopped halfway there and had a whole thing out, and and on the train, everybody was just having so much fun. There wasn't idiotic behavior. There was just fun. you know, and my favorite thing was one of our hashes that from Houston was named there because she lost a bunch of things just prior to getting on this train, and she had a bit ditzy. They thought, you know, the hashes from Australia decided to give her a name, and she got the name of Kraft, which stands for can't remember a fucking thing. And and she's still, so that's always how I remember. And then when I came to America and came to Houston, I actually met Kraft again. So she was here.
That thing about the train, they ran it 2 days in a row.
Right.
And one day had a little bit of engine problem, but halfway, the train stopped, what seemed in the middle of nowhere. And across the field, like 500 meters away, is a pub. We all run over there.
Oh, yes, exactly.
It's just
That's right.
lined up. It's lined up with 200 beers to walk in and grab them. Yeah, it was spectacular.
Then we get down to New Zealand, and of course you got all the beer. The runs were excellent. Some of those runs up the mountains were so excellent, and it was such fun. And then I always laugh at you're leaving, you got to see people everywhere. And I always remember hearing the radio, I think it was a couple of days later, and they were talking to the police chief because they're saying, how did this all go? He goes, yeah, we were a bit worried at first, you know, so we had brought in some extra people down just in case, but we never had any problem with the hashes. We only had a couple of problems with some locals. They were the only ones that got arrested. And he said, yes, there was a park where we were having the run. It was called International Park, I believe. And he said, and I do believe there was more international relationships going on than the United Nations going on at International Park. You know, so that tells me that the police came in. They weren't actually worried, but mind you, Kiwi cops are a totally different breed. You know, they're very casual about things, and you know, easygoing. So,
to that point, a lot of people thought that was the best one. Organized, problem-free, good weather, language, and acceptance of the local community was all perfect. What about after that?
The next memorable one, it was after that was Cyprus. And this is like the first sort of time it sort of came out of Asia and gone into Cyprus. And at that time, I'd moved to Houston. Or it wasn't in Houston properly at that time, but I moved there and I took my current girlfriend at that time, hashtag Pattya, and we flew to Cyprus. And I always remember I was flying standby because my sister works for British Airways. I was doing standby tickets all the way through. And we get to London and we're flying from London to Cyprus. One of my hashes friends from dirt road friends from Townsville, I said, I don't know if I'm going to make the plane. You know, can you pump me with me to the hotel? We're going to be at the hotel, blah, blah. The next thing, I actually get on the plane, but I'm in first class. But the best part was I'm in first class and my girlfriend sitting in coach, like four rows back, something like that. And the guy looks at me thinking I'm a complete asshole because my girlfriend's sitting in coach and I'm in first class. Mind you, I had got on the plane at the last moment, you know, it wasn't like I did. So he actually ended up giving up his seat to my girlfriend and moved.
My God.
I think he just made me, and I felt like about this.
You still won, yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. But Cyprus was good because it was something different compared to Southeast Asia. Here we are in the Mediterranean. The type of climate, the type of terrain that we're running on now is something totally different. Again, one of my favorite dirt ones, we did an interdirt there, and it was something, they decided to do a trek of like the legionnaires of the Roman legions. So we each got like a stick and thing, and we had to, we had to go basically half across Cyprus to get to where the on was. So it was like 3 hours, I think we were on that run for the interdirt on that one, for Pattya Dirt Road, the interdirt. But again, well organized. It was urine, I think. Urine think it was that, who ran that one. And it was well organized, extremely. Despite having a small number of people, I think they had in their organizing committee, I think it was still pretty well organized. Good venue.
Yeah, do you remember which Sunday run you did?
I did the run with, I think that's where I met Rose. Yeah.
That was a great circle. It was like the closest thing to a ball breaker, I think.
Exactly. I think we're on near a dam. I think it was right there.
Yeah, we ran along the dam, and yeah.
And that's when I met Rose. But I had already I had met Sex Toy.
Yeah.
Well, I hadn't met Sex Toy once, not long after I arrived in America, because I went to the Nittany Valley 555 run, and where it was in this tents, and we had all these outside tents in a big cabin. I don't think Rose was there at that time, but yeah, Rose and Sex Toy would definitely do in that circle. I remember that one. It was a fun circle. That on the dam there. That was pretty good.
And that's the first time I saw Noriega do his undressed Yankee Soldier song, standing in a 55-gallon drum.
Yeah, it was a sight.
Yeah.
No, but that again, it was a really good run. That was excellent run up there.
Up to the point you moved to Houston because of the way you work.
Yes.
What about getting involved in mismanagement? When did that start for you?
Right. Basically, my background was an RN. I was a travel nurse. I decided to come into America just for a couple of years because I met a whole bunch of Americans, and I knew She Muscle, Finger, F2. Some people might remember her. Her Ash name is Fingerfuck, or everybody just calls her F2, and Slummy. I met those all from that. And I said, well, I'm going to try, and I'll come to Texas, and that's where I started running it as I started nursing here, and a place called Tyler, which was a dry county, which was really bad. I thought it was really wet. Said you should not have put an Australian in a dry county. It's just, I think that's cruel and unusual punishment. I started hashing. I first went up to Dallas, then I went to Austin, and I also started hashing with Houston. Then when I finally moved to Houston, I started hashing for a while. Then I decided to get in with mismanagement. And initially I was doing Houston hash and then the original Space City hash. Right. That's where I met Fire Tunnels, Mighty Mouse, a few other people who had started the Space City hash. They asked me to be the RA. So you've got to realize in America, the RA is the big person. In Asia, the GM is the big person, which is always seems different to us. Here in Houston and Space City, the GM was basically like the overseer and sort of just the guiding light type thing. So that's how it ran slightly different, but they asked me to be RA. And so I did that with the Space City. It's sort of like a junta. It just stays there until they decided to change. And I said, I've been the RA for a couple of years. And I said, give somebody else a chance to do this, have fun. I also, at that time, was also joint master for the Houston hash. I then became the RA for the Houston hash. So I started doing that for a while. Then when I stepped down as RA, I did joint master again. So just stayed there for a while things were going on. So
your approach to being an RA, what informed that most from these places you had been, and what worked in Texas?
So in Texas, we had to keep it shorter. You can't have it as long as what you had, and try to keep it interesting. So don't drag it all out. They would prefer to have it shorter and sweeter, more compact, which is different to what Asia likes. They like making fun of everybody for as long as they can. So that in Houston, and especially I think a lot of the Americans ones they like it shorter and sweeter, which I had no problem with that. So I did laugh at when I first started being RA. They wanted an interpreter apparently for my for the hash. So they felt that I couldn't speak English. And I was saying, hang on, I come from a country that actually speaks more clearly English than you do. So yeah, we had great fun doing that. So enjoyed it. Then certain things happened to me. I had a car accident a few years later, which took me out of able to run again, because I had severe ankle injury. So that changed the whole way I dealt with it. And it affected me with the hash because, you couldn't run. So just turning up and going to the on circles was something that I really wasn't enjoying, because to me, the fun part was the run, to exercise, having fun on the trail. I always say one of my favorite hash runs was actually an inter-hash. It was in Trinidad and Tobago. I remember running up the hill, and then we came down the hill, and it was steep as hell, and we were just running down the hill. Then we came to a river, and we got into the river, running along the riverfront. There was two options: to run around the outside or go through the chute, which was under the rocks. So you're trusting the waves to get you out on the other side. I had so much fun doing that. I actually went through that chute about 4 times. I thought that was like, this is so cool.
So you went to Inter-America's hashes too.
Yes, and Inter-America Hash, the first one I actually went to was in Florida. Orlando, yes. And then I always laugh because that's when I met my doppelganger Pipes, because there was another hasher named Pipes, but he was named Pipes because he had muscles, which I had none of compared to him. So, but that's where I met Toos. I met music. That was my first in America's hash. And then my second, of course, was Trinidad and Tobago. That was, again, a fun trip. Again, had so much fun downtown St. George. Did you go to that Trinidad one?
I didn't go to the Inter-Americas. I went to their aborted attempt at Interhash.
Correct.
And I was down for that.
And by the way, that was the first time I really met your Rumson Hash people, was at Trinidad. Well, I had met them at Nittany Valley, so I had met them before, but I had not been introduced to their inter-hash bids before. Right. I saw their first inter-bid when Mr. Jackson decided to bring out his overhead projector, which I had not seen since high school, and did his bid through the overhead projector. And then he also gives his complaints about of the current inter-hash, but I was in stitches. To this day, I think the man is a genius when he comes. Yeah. When I saw that the first time. So
he and Elephant Dick are both comedy geniuses. I don't remember where it would have been. It was before Mexico got the bid, and he was down talking all the other bidders. And he said, but I got to be fair, there's some good things about Mexico. When you go there, you will get free phone calls home, because the kidnappers will let you call home as much as you want.
So that's and of course, Elephant Dick introduced me to the Christopher Reeve Macarena. So we're doing this Macarena at Trinidad and Tobago, and here's Elephant Dick doing the whole Macarena thing, and he goes, Christopher Reeve Macarena, and he just stands there.
I think we'll do that again at Como this year.
I think he also introduced me to the perpetual butt chug. I saw that at Nittany Valley, and I do not want to ever see it again.
Yeah, have you ever been to a Rumson Hash or a Commotion?
It is one of those ones I haven't. Who talks to me, because he's been to the Rumson ones with you guys before. I said, every time he goes up there, I said, it's too cold sometimes. I go up there to Jersey. So I always find that those guys, and I always laugh they call themselves the Hells Angels of hashing. And I'm saying they are the furthest thing from the Hells Angels I've ever seen in my life.
I think it was Philly that called them that, just from some of the shock of the borders of inappropriateness that they crossed in. But they used to, I mean, actually in their early days, they used to go to a bar, and the way a real Rumson hash has less in common with the hash than almost anybody. There's no run fee. There's no GM.
Yeah.
There's no circle. There's no names. You come, you go on a trail. Somebody sets it up for free. You go to a bar, put $5 on. They buy the cheapest $5 Bud Light pitchers they can. And they used to, when they were young, stay till they're drunk, and they'd be beating on each other and getting it. Yeah, so they were a bit rowdy.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. What about the happenings on the hash? Let's just talk about the stuff that goes wrong. Stuff that you've had go wrong. White powder, red dress, publicity.
So it all depends. I've been used to powder, flour, chalk, the whole thing. They use chalk, and you got to realize they actually started developing different arrow types for people in the hash. So Hammersley had a arrow looked like a 4. So Perth had a hash that had a P on it. So they sort of varied their arrows. When I came to Houston, it was the funniest part, because you got to realize not long after I arrived, we had some of these issues that happened with white substances appearing on grounds that people complained about. My favorite one was, we were doing the PC hash here, which is the men's hash, which stands for pelvic congestion, by the way. So the PC hash was doing a run, and we've got to realize most of the times we were running the same time as the Harriets were doing the OTR hash, which again was on the rag hash. So they would be running at the same nights, but they would be, and in the early days of that, we would start from different places, but we would end up meeting up at the end somewhere after we've done our circles and stuff like that. It's the PC hash. We were doing a piece here, sat downtown. There's a hasher name here called Small Johnson. Now, Small Johnson, he looks Italian. He's Italian, has dark hair, curly wave. And you got to realize he was the hair, because PC hash is a live hair. So he was running ahead. He had bags of flour. And by the way, the Harriets didn't do live hair, but they had already come through. So police had been more notified about this mysterious substance around this circle, which is down near the medical center, saying, come investigate. So there's a bunch of police at this circle, and all of a sudden, here comes Small Johnson with his bag of flour, throwing it down, and the police point to him and says, hey, you come over here. And Small Johnson's, he's not aware of what's going on. You pull him. Well, they wrestle him to the ground.
Whoa.
And somebody says, and they yell at him, do you speak English? Because Small Johnson could have an Arabic look about him.
Yeah.
And he says, because you got to realize this guy's a perfusionist in the open heart surgery, And then the flowers going around. The police then say, he was saying later, the police were yelling, oh, you got the powder's on you. You be careful. You got all this white stuff on your inside. And I've tried to tell people anthrax actually is not white. So I just want to point out.
Brown.
It's brown. If you have that much anthrax in a bag, that's millions of dollars of anthrax, by the way.
Yeah. Just like the people think it might be cocaine, sure.
I'm carrying that much cocaine in it. Well, he'd been detained by the police for a little while. Next thing, the pack of the hash turns up, and we can see him at the circle, but we're not coming over. And he can see us all standing over here, not trying to help intervene at any point in time. So that's one of my favorite things. We finally got released and he was okay. It was like, but my other favorite incident was actually with Hammersley hash. There was a casino opened up in Perth, the Birdswood Casino, and they made a big deal about dress code and all this stuff. I mean, we're in Western Australia. It's hot. Like, what are you trying to tell us? But luckily, one of the hashes worked there. His hash name was Steak Knife. I said, again, not very thoughtful. He was a butcher there, so his hash name was Steak Knife. The hash came up behind the back of the casino. And Steak Knife had put something in the back door so it would allow us to get through the back door. So the hash went through the back door of the casino, went through the main gambling hall of the casino. Everybody's freaking out. No, well, the security wasn't. I think the patrons were just like, what's going on here? Not really worrying about it at all. And the next thing, we get out, and one of the guys got caught by the security, and this guy's got a pith helmet. He looks like something out of, some bad British movie. He says, and they was trying to say to this guy, he says, this is more embarrassing for you that we could get through this. Let him go. We won't say anything about it. Just, blah, blah, blah. So finally, after negotiating with, I think XYZ and all those were doing that, we managed to get him away, and we went on. But somehow this incident ended up in the paper the next day. So to that point, that article got blown up and put into the Hammersley wagon. So if you ever go to Hammersley Run, there is a big poster on there, and it talks about how these hashes caused havoc going through the casino. That was one of my fun things.
Well, let's talk about your view now over 40 years. I mean, you saw the hash in Asia, and then in the South Pacific, and you returned. You've been doing the international events over many decades now. And America certainly is a change for people who moved in the 90s or 2000s to the States to see hashing there. What do you think has happened size-wise, and what's that mean for the future of hashing from what you see as the people you started with? You were a young guy. A lot of those people that you've talked about aren't with us anymore. They just aged out and passed on.
The hash has changed a fair bit indirectly since I moved here, even into Houston. It seems a little bit less cohesive. I don't know if that sounds bad. When I hashed, all those people were my friends. We had social inwards, outwards, not just in the hash. They were socially. They became my friends over the time. Here in Houston, which can get big at times. Sometimes you could have runs with 20 people, then you can have runs with 60 plus people. And we do have a couple of other hashes here in Houston, but Houston's the primary one. Now it's become a lot younger compared to even when I was there. When I started and I was young, there was still a lot more older people than I was. Now I'm the really old guy in the corner at the hash. Now we have the GM here is McPisser. I don't know if you've met. Have you?
Yeah, and he travels a lot. Yeah, I don't think I've ever hashed with him in Houston, but I've hashed with him in Tallinn and Netherlands and Germany. Yeah,
I think he's done Europe. I don't think he's done Asia yet, but it's like he hasn't done a world in a hash yet. I don't believe he has.
He was in Trinidad for the fake one.
The fake one, yes, that's right. I was supposed to go to that one as well. I had my money there. I think I lost my money on that one, and I think with the infamous Inter-Americas in Colombia, I think I was one of those people who said goodbye to my money on that one. So. But yes, it has changed to me. But that's how times change. It's good or bad. I have no complaints about it. Yeah. Because different younger generation that are coming in, and they have different ways of doing things. They still do some of the same stupid shit that we used to do, but it's a different type of situation.
Well, it's interesting to have passed through the time frame of these 40 years. That's the same time I've been hashing, from when we had physical film cameras and typewriters and then computers, and we documented and we took pictures and handed them out, and the run sheets came, and that's how you found, to the internet, to social media, just insane amount, to back of now we don't want everybody to see all the pictures.
Right. I mean, even with the pictures before, because some of those pictures you wouldn't be able to develop probably in some of those pictures back in the day. Because I always remember one time I went over with my father, because to do the 20th anniversary of Ballpark Hash. And I made a mistake of accidentally leaving my film camera in one of the Hash cars. I managed to get it back. I went into Target to get my film developed. I'm walking out with my daughter, and I take and start looking at the photos. And my daughter wants to see the pictures, like, and all
people just shoved them down their pants and took photos.
I don't know how many assholes I had seen and crotch shots I had seen, and I'm like, no. Trying to do it. And I think that gave it a bit more mystique. I think people didn't, it was always that it wasn't out there as much as it was. And now, because of Facebook, other social media type things, and digital cameras, you can take a picture of anything, get it developed anywhere, don't even have to worry about anything. That has changed. And yes, people get a bit more privacy orientated because of that. It's different, because back then you might have taken a picture, but you never knew that was going to get developed on some of those photos, But I don't think people took those type of photos even back then. But now, because you can pull out your phone and take a photo, sometimes have to be careful with some people, even though it's in good fun and good humor, and it's not in bad taste. Yes, it might be bad taste, but it's nothing bad, It's
not malicious,
None. And that's the way I came about it, But
on your injury, when you got your severest injury, how'd that affect your work, and how'd you recover from that?
So I was actually going to work one day, and I was on the interstate here in Houston, and a drunk driver hit me head on. I suffered a broken forearm and a shattered right ankle, basically because of the compression injuries on that. The arm was not a problem, but my ankle was a problem. I had no cartilage, and there was no way to replace it back then. There was none. So now it was just bone on bone, and basically my ankle, when you took an x-ray, it looked like a white snowstorm. So a few years ago, I finally had enough of it and of pain, because even with work, I'd be working. I couldn't run. I couldn't even walk 2,000 steps a day without being in pain for a while. And I wasn't a good person taking pain medication. I didn't like taking any of that stuff anyway. About a couple of years ago, I went to a physician one time. I said, okay, I'm talking about getting my ankle fused. And he said, no, let's talk about getting it replaced. I knew about replacements, but I was more for people who weren't active. It was more for a non-active at that stage. But the development had increased better. I walked through it, did a lot of research on it, and next thing, I got it replaced. Now I'm fine. I don't run at the moment because I still want to get that totally solid up, healed. But I have no pain anymore. My ankle, the whole thing. It was like, if somebody has an ankle injury and they're thinking about fusing, I can now tell them, hey, this is the thing to get done, because it's life changing, honestly. Because before, every day ended in pain. First morning in the day, we got up, try to put your foot down. It was always problematic. And it was my job, which I tend to travel a lot with, because of the company I work for now. I travel most of the US a lot. Occasionally, I've done some overseas ones for work. I did Saipan, and that was just before COVID hit. And I always laugh at my boss trying to say, you've got to come home. COVID's shutting everything down. I said, there's no COVID in where I am, right? So why do I need to come home straight away? There's no rush. So now that I do need to have my knee replaced, because I've been my balance has been off all this time.
Wow, yeah.
So later this year, we'll get the knee done. I'll be fine. So
yeah.
But
back to the 1980s, yeah.
I still hash. Most of my hashing now is either occasional one. We've got the infamous Cooper Bowl here in Houston, and people who have never been to Houston before So every year they award for the person who has been like probably be the dumbest stuff in the year or whatever. So they award around Super Bowl time the thing called Pooper Bowl. If you actually go to the site, you'll see it's a toilet. So the original toilet was actually a ceramic toilet. Now it was then made, and it's been redeveloped, this Pooper Bowl, to the point now it is motorized. It's a wooden seat with people's names, and it's got all these things attached to it. It has become one of those notorious things. So at this coming weekend will be actually the Pooper Bowl. I always remember a good friend of mine, Hasher, such a puss, who since passed away. I had just flown back from Australia to come and watch the Super Bowl because I had become a Packers fan, and Packers were playing the Super Bowl versus the Denver Broncos. I get there and I'm in the circle, and all of a sudden I'm the one that's getting awarded the Super Bowl. And I said, what the fuck? I just flew halfway around the world to get this shitty prize. And you got to be aware, once you win this prize, the person will douse you with the ingredients of their favorite thing. So such a puss decided his favorite thing was pancakes and orange juice for breakfast. So all the ingredients of pancakes, including the syrup, was placed upon my head and during this period of time. But I got back to the next person. I made them all the ingredients of Vegemite. So that, and if those who do not know what Vegemite is, just look it up.
You might not even get the dogs to lick it off. I don't know.
I actually made them pour Foster's beer all over it too. So they were doused in Foster's beer, which I don't drink.
Wow. Yeah, no one from Australia drinks Foster's beer.
So we always tell people, so that only tourists drink Foster's.
Yeah.
So in Perth, it's emu. They do emu draft stuff like that, which is funny. But it's funny in Australia, they have beers that are very regional over there. So you have regional beers, you know. Yeah. And I'm really looking forward to going back to, this is the first time I've been to Perth for probably about 6 years, 7 years. And hashing with the Hammersley guys again. They did the World Eater Hash there a number of years ago, of course. I felt sorry for them because they were pushed into that date, which caused a lot of people's problems. It
was Easter Sunday. It was kind of every.
People don't realize that in Perth, we know everybody disappears on Easter weekend. It's a 4-day weekend, and people they leave Perth, and so Perth became a ghost town for everybody. You know, that time.
Yeah, it was brutal. We had found a coffee shop, and it was the only place in 6 blocks that was open on Sunday morning. This one coffee shop said we will be open tomorrow. There was nothing but shut doors. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
So, and are you going to get to Interhash Prambanan?
Yes, I am. I'm planning to do that. I said Queensland. I'm going back to doing the World Interhashes again, which I had put off hold for a long while because of injuries and stuff. Queenstown, I actually did I did a run, a couple of things there, which was fun. And I'm looking forward to going to this one, back to Indonesia again. So it's been a while.
Yeah, you remember my cancellation for Queenstown, huh?
Yeah.
Turn needle on a collapsed lung, and I was fine 2 days later, but banned from flying.
Yeah, that's the problem with a pneumothorax. Yeah, when you get one of those. How did you get that pneumothorax? Was that
acupuncture? Guy I've been going to just help with some shoulder tightness and posture, and he just said, "Can I do some acupuncture?" And we did it for 3 weeks, and then the last session,
oh my God,
he did something different. He was spinning them around and jabbing them, and one of them must have torn something.
Well, you don't have to go far because with the pleural cavity there, as soon as you tap inside, it's like, because people don't realize that pleural cavity is a negative space between the cavity of the chest wall and also the lung, and that's why it keeps it inflated, because of that negative space. And you put that needle in there, air came in, put positive extra and collapsed the lung, and then you have to deal with getting that done.
Yeah, it took a couple days, but all it took was carrying a laundry basket from the basement to the third floor, and I was like, "We need to call an ambulance."
Yeah, and it was disappointing because Queenstown was so beautiful. After the hash, I did a drive. I just spent about 4 to 5 days driving around the North South Island and eventually getting down to Milford Sound and a few other places down there. Was, as much as I like to give Kiwis a crap because that's what Australians do, that it's such a beautiful place down there. It's like, by the way, my favorite T-shirt was for that Inner Hash in Rotorua. There was actually, it's a picture of a hash. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I have it. Yeah,
The 3 guys with the sheep.
yeah.
I don't know. Should I describe?
I think people know what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, but my favorite line on that is just, "Those Kiwis are really sick bastards." That was my favorite line on that.
Great. I don't think I've said a hash in Queenstown. I've said a hash in Christchurch, and we vacation there for Kiwi Nash hash all the time. It's spectacular. And I'll be back there in 2 years. Gonna miss this year's Kiwi Nash hash, but we get back there. Everybody needs to go to New Zealand for hashing sometime.
Yeah.
They will probably not do another World Inter Hash, at least in our lifetime. Yeah.
No, after what transpired, especially with the beer issue and things like that, I think that. But I think the way the committee now, that Interhash committee is doing it now, I think I'm glad we've finally decided. Those who don't know, the World Interhash was just bid, and initially it was almost like a vote by hand type way back.
Yeah.
Then it got changed, and then it got about only GMs was doing it, and then everybody became a GM all of a sudden, and then. But now I believe when people can take this because of that disaster, especially that those people who are on that committee, including a couple of people I've already mentioned already here, I think they can look at it and they look at the financials and they look at the logistics and then say, yeah, this is probably going to work and this is going to be fine.
Yeah.
Having some one person take it on is never going to happen again, I don't believe.
Yeah.
I don't think it will happen.
Yeah, I'm part of the Interhash Council. We had to tell people you cannot bid. This is a one-person bid, or you do not have the infrastructure. We've had to do it, and it's not fun. People don't. We want to say we're not discriminating. It's not personal, but yeah,
this is
don't need it.
Yeah, I mean, we are looking anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 people coming. You have to have the infrastructure. You got to have the ability. So I'm glad this is you guys are on this committee. I forgot that you were on that, so I apologize. So,
well, we try to stay. I'd rather stay under the radar on it than anything else. Yeah, but.
I mean, you're there with XYZ and She Muscle, though. I'm so glad that has happened, really, honestly, because I know the Indonesian ones is well thought out. They've done big ones before. It's not like they're new to this show. The days of when Interhash, the first ones, I think Bali, I think we only had like a couple of thousand in Bali, 3,000, something like that. And then it started blowing. I think the largest, was the Jubilee hash, Mother Hash had.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Chiang Mai ended up with more or not.
I missed the Chiang Mai, so I didn't.
Yeah, it was pretty big, and the venue was gigantic. I don't know. I mean, at some point, the number said 6,800 at one of them. I don't remember if it's Chiang Mai or KL. But
well, I know KL had over 6,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't know exactly which one.
There are rumors they're going to have a 90th anniversary, but not Interhash in this 28.
Yeah, I was going to say because I think we did that one in 98. It was 98.
98. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'd just been in America a couple of years because we went there for that one because that was the one after Cyprus, I believe.
Yeah. They keep threatening to tear down that stadium, and it's still there. It's somehow standing. All right, Pipes. It's great to talk with you. I know a lot of people are going to be glad to hear from you, and you have known a lot of people around the world.
My face and hair has changed a lot since those days. So the days of long hair and gone. So yes. So
Thanks, Pipe. Thanks, Pipe, for all your time. On.
on.
To close the circle, here's the Hash Anthem sung by Mother Hash.
Swing low.